Hello,
Hi Anjali, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. I know you're very, very busy, Anjali,
Not
and
at all, not at all.
sorry to have plagued you and got you to
No,
join
no, no,
us.
not at all. I'm very happy to
So,
be here.
yeah,
Thank you
so
for
good.
having me.
And I was looking through your Facebook and everything that you do, and it's just amazing. So,
Thank
just to
you.
give you a little background as people are joining in, uh, this whole idea of Beautiful Planet was basically started because of a young girl called Ahilya, who's, is already, I mean, she's 12 years old and she is extremely interested in the environment. She's interested in wildlife. She's also very interested in working for causes that support the environment, right? And I don't know if you know about Rare India. Rare India is a company that markets sustainable hotels. Trying to look at luxury from the prism of sustainability, which is about, of course, about the environment, about the community,
Mhm.
about heritage, about preservation, conservation. These are words that we really love. And when we promote our hotels, these are things that we really talk about.
Right.
Ahilya used to be watching us. Her mother works with us, Shobana works with us. And when she was watching all this, and she used to take down copious notes because this is her interest. And she used to send me so much written work. And I used to wonder, I mean, this kid, I mean, she's writing such a lot, and you can see she's hugely interested. And that is when this whole idea of Beautiful Planet came up. And she was our first guest about 2 weeks ago. And last year we had Samya Goel, and Samya actually crusaded for to ensure that they started using less and less paper in the judiciary by
Lovely.
creating a campaign on change.org. And then
Mhm.
Shobha put me in touch with you, and from Extra Mile, Pune, she put me in touch with you, and absolutely thrilled to have you on board. For people
Thank you so
listening
much.
in, this is an initiative uh, to shine the sun, to shine the sunshine, not even the spotlight, on these lovely young crusader. A lot of people would probably be thinking about where to party on a Friday night, and here we have Anjali, chatting with us. Anjali is an environmentalist studying sociology and environmental studies. She's also the co-founder of Project Amara, right?
Yes.
Project Amara and the Yugma network. So in a bit we'll talk about that. So Anjali, let's begin by asking you, when and how did your awareness of the environment around you begin?
So I would say this actually, I grew up for a long time in Bali, Indonesia, and I was actually I was studying at the Green School, and I used to live on the campus. So
Oh,
it's made
lovely. Yeah.
completely out of bamboo and it's in the nature. So I think it started there. I don't think I realized the importance of it until I moved back to India and I saw the situation here. I remember the first time I moved, I was appalled to just see the way it was on the roads, the streets, everything. So I would say that is really when it struck me that it's not the way it was in Bali everywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And I think my awareness started from there. So I began getting involved in different projects, different things. I went for a few different strikes, climate strikes. The project Amara started in 11th grade, and I think from there it just really started picking on as well.
Mm,
And I got into working in the social sector and the environmental sector a little bit more.
yeah.
And I would say this is the first time, like the EIA is the first time it's picked up this
Fantastic.
much.
It's picked up with this one. So let's go back to your green school, I mean, to a green school in Bali, and tell me something about how this green school operated, and how did
Right.
they kind of put this whole idea of making you grow and evolve in a nature friendly environment?
So I would say that they did that by basically putting you into the nature. So our school was made completely out of bamboo. We had no walls, no windows, nothing. It was just completely bamboo, everything, and it was mud
Everything.
floors.
Yeah.
All of our pavements were just gravel and rock. So we would just play
Lovely.
outside all day. All of our classes happened in nature. There was no differentiation. So if it was science, if we were learning pH, we'd go down to the river and measure the pH ourselves. Half the
Fantastic.
day we'd spend in the rice fields, jumping into the river, just having fun like that. And I think it was even better for me because my mom is a teacher. In fact, both my parents now run a school, so they're
So
both teachers. But my
fantastic.
mother used to teach on campus, so we actually lived on campus as well. And our house was also made completely of bamboo and no walls, no windows. So I think just growing up there for a long time, um,
Yeah.
it really immersed. They had subjects like green studies, where we would go and garden every day. We had thematic units where we, learned about coconuts for an entire month,
Okay,
or just
fantastic.
healing
And
remedies
and
for an entire
how did
month.
that work? I mean, how is this I mean, how does coconut contribute to mathematics?
I would say that it's about looking at how it's all interconnected. So, for example, if I'm studying coconuts for a month, right, I learn a lot about science. I can learn about medicine. I can learn about ecology. I can learn about the interdependence. I can learn about local economies that are surviving on that
Surviving on,
particular plant,
absolutely, absolutely.
like pressed oil or making rope out of it. There's so many different things you
So
can do
many
with
different
something as
things.
simple as
Yeah,
that. And when you start there and then you start picking out so many different things around you, it ties together and slowly you start learning
beautifully,
about it that way.
beautifully. And when did you come to India? How old were you when you came
I
to
moved
India?
to India in eighth grade, so I would say probably around 13 years old, 13 or 14
Okay.
years old.
And what was the first difference that struck you between Bali and you moved to Pune, right? That was the
Yeah, I
place you
moved
all
to
moved to.
Pune.
So,
Pune.
what was the first thing that struck you as a major difference where environment was concerned between Bali and Pune?
I would say that I think the first time I would say it was a multiple things, to be very honest. Actually, I can remember a few instances of just seeing trash on the roads,
Yeah,
just being very surprised by the number of buildings everywhere. I think
yeah.
that was a huge one for me because I was not at all used to that. Also, school. I would say school was a very big one
Mm-hmm.
because I realized how rigid the entire curriculum here was, how little thought that there was in schools. So I do remember school being a very main factor. I went to a
Absolutely,
normal
yeah.
school for eighth grade and I left it after that because I could not I just didn't feel like I was learning.
Learning, yeah, yeah. And you went into homeschooling, right?
I did. I was homeschooling for 2 years, ninth and 10th,
Yeah.
and after that my parents have now an alternate learning education center.
In Pune. I think
Pune.
Shobha's son goes to that school.
Yes,
Is
yes,
this the same school?
yes,
What is
yes,
it
yes,
called?
he does.
What is the
DLRC,
school?
Drive Change Learning and Resource Center.
What is it called? Sorry?
Drive Change Learning and Resource Center. So you can just write DLRC for short. DLRC.
DLRC. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Fantastic. And do you also teach at the school now? Because I
I
think
used to
Ashoka,
teach,
yeah,
yes, I used to teach art and design at the school.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this was during my gap year. I was
Okay,
teaching there. But
yeah.
I also studied there. So I studied 11th, 12th from that school.
Okay, fantastic. And so tell me how in DLRC, what's a typical day for a student like? I mean, let's talk about senior classes because junior classes, I mean, it's okay because there's no pressure and they're fine. So what does
Right.
a senior class look like?
I would say that you have your subjects, you have different subjects, and you are free to choose whatever combination of subjects you want. So
Yeah,
I had an interesting combination where I could take history as well as chemistry and business, everything that I wanted. Um, and we study it a lot, so outside the classroom, a lot more than inside the classroom. And a lot of it is based on research, a lot of it is based on case studies and lab work if it's a science subject. Along with that, we have something called an SIP time, which is a social impact project,
okay.
where you need to pick up something that you're passionate about, which you can help society with, and
Yeah,
work on that. That's how the Project Amara actually started.
started.
And
Okay.
along with that, you have things like right now they've started some new things after I've left actually called
Yeah,
Fiber to Fabric, where kids learn how to sew and work with cloth, things like that. They have a farm to table where kids learn the importance
learn
of how food is grown and how it gets to your table, and then they cook
table. Yeah,
and learn it themselves. So all of this
fantastic.
happens even at a senior level, all the way till 12th grade.
Very
They have
interesting.
carpentry sessions, they have toys from trash. So a lot of these fun. different fun
For
projects.
different fun projects. Lovely. So tell me, I mean, when you were in Bali, I mean, which is again the green school, very, very
Right.
interesting. Not all schools would be like a green school. So you went to a particular kind of school
Yes.
that kind
Yes.
of, initiated the way, initiated into
Yes.
the kind of thought process you are in. So do you think everybody who goes to the school automatically works or sets a path in their life that is environment friendly, or do you find a couple of children who join in and say, well, this is not working for me, and yeah.
I would say that most of the community at the Green School is it's an expat based community. So you have people joining in for a year and then moving on.
Okay.
I think the kids who actually stay in that school for more than, let's say, a year or two,
Yeah.
it does make a huge impact. Because I think if you're spending day in and day out in an environment like that, I think
Yeah.
it's something which is second nature to humans. I don't think it's something that is separate or something that needs to be relearned. I think we just have to get comfortable with it again. And once you're comfortable, I think we feel a lot better in nature than outside of it. So
Outside of
once,
it, yeah.
right. So I think once kids spend a decent amount of time at the Green School, I think that they pretty much, it becomes a part of
Pretty
them.
much it becomes a part of life. No, but eventually, I mean, the problem with schools, with the pressure points come when whichever early grounding you have, the the parameters by which you're measured for successes are, pretty much standard, right?
Hmm.
You kind of, I mean, what are you going to do? Who are you going to become? What's the, what's your next step? The same board exam, I mean, in the Indian context.
Right.
So how does DLRC, and how did you manage that when you got into 11 and 12? Because you would have to sit for the state board or the
Right.
central board, or did you do
I sat for
IB?
the A levels,
Okay, A
Cambridge A
levels, yeah.
levels.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
But I would say regardless, so I think something that I find here is that there's a lot of emphasis placed on exams and structured curriculum-based education up till eighth grade. And
yeah.
I feel that even though that emphasis is placed a lot, especially in most conventional schools, I think it's really not necessary. I think if you leave a kid be and let them learn and explore with a lot of framework as well, not just letting them be, but giving them that framework and letting them explore in nature and learning that way, it really makes no difference once you get to ninth grade, I would say. As long as you've
Absolutely,
had those basic foundations put into place, and that can be
yeah.
done through games, that can be done in nature, that can be done in so many different ways
Different
apart
fun
from a book.
ways from a book, yeah.
Right. So I think once you get into ninth grade, yes, there's a certain amount of rigor that is required, and I think many schools do give you that. But again, that rigor can also be given in different ways. It doesn't have to
Okay.
be the same rote learning, and I think
Mm,
DLRC helps a lot with that,
with
where
that,
it's
yeah.
not just rote learning, but it's
Yeah.
through projects.
Through projects where the understanding of the subject is far
Right.
greater.
Right. So I would say
Uh,
it wasn't an issue as such.
okay.
Transitioning from that sort of an environment is not really an issue.
Yeah, and most of your peers are the same. I mean, uh, I mean, it work similarly for your peer group, among your friends, or did you have one or two children who really didn't fit into the system and they had to, go back, because that's the usual system,
Right.
hardboard system where you learn, you get marks, and you go to the next level. That's the usual system.
Right.
That's what we're used
Right.
to. So did anyone of your friends, did among any
I don't think anyone left DLRC to go back to a regular system, but I
okay,
think at 11th grade, if you've studied in a regular system all your life, it can be a little bit hard to switch to a system which makes you really think and
absolutely.
apply yourself. So
Hmm.
it's obviously better if you
Application
start
is very
younger.
important.
Right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
application. I think that's a skill that you pick up when you're young itself, and I think that's why it's
Absolutely.
even more important for younger grades for children to be allowed to analyze, think for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of my daughters went to a progressive school, not to this extent, not like DLRC, but up to a point where, it
Hmm.
was circle time. It was, sitting out and learning in the gardens. They learned how to make, when they were talking about bacteria, they learned how to set the he, they'd be out there to learn seasons. They'd be out there learning. But my problem came when they grew up and their peer group, where they were in the house, or her sister who was not. The problem was when it did not I mean, her growth parameters did not meet with the growth parameters the other children. I mean, so here was a child who was winning awards for something. She was called the Einstein or something, or there's something else. But this child just knew her stuff. But there was no competition. There was nothing for her to compete with, because the idea was to get everybody. There was a circular learning, right? In fact,
Right.
Ahilya's mother was telling me that the children, there's always a circle. It's a learning circle. It's a sharing circle. But for me, after she kind of grew up and she started looking at this, my problem was how to keep her there, because for her that became, so do you find that kind of little issues, between children who go to this school? As a teacher, I'm asking you, because you taught as a teacher, how would you convince a child that this is it, this is the perfect learning principle?
I would say that there is actually no perfect learning principle out there, because it really depends from child to child, and you can't standardize any system, whether that's a progressive system or a traditional system. I think every child learns differently, and you have to cater to that. But in terms of this sort of a feeling, I would say that it's just about helping that kid understand what their strengths are, and I think that takes time. It may not always happen when you're in school. I know with
Yeah,
me, it certainly didn't happen when I was in school. It happened after school. And I think just giving them that constant reassurance, highlighting their strengths again and again, regardless of what their classmates are doing, right? I
fantastic.
think it's
Yeah,
highlighting their own strengths and helping them build on those and giving
yeah.
them the reassurance that it will work, like it will help them one day
One day,
in
yeah.
whatever
And
they do.
so, do you see that happening with you when you are in a larger, very in a heterogeneous system?
Are you talking about like a regular
Regular,
system?
yeah. I mean,
Right.
in the
Um,
university that you're going to, there must be
okay.
all kinds of
Right.
children, right? All kinds of
Right. Right.
learning. Yeah,
Right. I would say once it comes down to a university, the environment itself is completely different because in a university you're very much on your own.
yeah.
So there's very little push from, the adults in your life then to steer you a certain way. I think that is a point when you need to start being aware of your own strengths. So
Strengths,
I think
fantastic.
especially kids who've come from alternative systems, they do very well in university because they are already very in connect with their own selves,
Their own
and
selves, yeah.
they are aware of their strengths and their disadvantages and how they can use that. They can analyze, so they can use, like, they can figure out how to use their strengths in the best way. So I think at a university level it's very helpful to be aware of
They
those.
to be coming from a progressive school, yeah,
Right.
fantastic. So let's talk about the project Amara, which I find
Sure.
fascinating. It is it's an ongoing project, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the project Amara,
Sure.
and yeah,
So the project Amara, it's basically it's a platform that five of us started when we were in DLRC, actually in 11th grade. It was a
yeah,
social impact project. It started as one,
yeah.
and it started when we all used the menstrual cup for the first time,
Mm,
and we realized that it's a wonderful product. We didn't know why others were not using it, why we heard about it so late. So we did some research into it. We found out a lot about sanitary napkins and tampons, how terrible they are for our bodies, the environment.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
we started doing some more research. Then we came up with a few session plans, and I think it just took off from there. So all five of us took a gap year, and we
Okay,
worked extensively on this project during our gap year, where we started going around to different universities, housing societies, slum areas, villages, schools, many different places, and we take 1 hour long sessions
yeah.
where we talk about what is insanitary napkins and tampons, why they're unhealthy for our body. We talk about different taboos. We talk about menstrual awareness in general, and then we also talk about all the different
Hi.
sustainable products out there.
Okay.
And then
So yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so that is essentially what we started doing in our gap year, and we found out very interesting things. We met a lot of people. For example, we realized
Sure.
that women often in urban slums and villages are way more open to the idea of a menstrual cup or the cloth pad. You just
Really?
have to, yeah, you just have to sit and talk to them. I think they are so aware. They know how to deal with their money. They know what is good for their body. They know what is good for the environment. It's just that they're always told what to do and what not to do. They're never really, it's never a discussion. It's always that
That's
we are urban
brilliant.
elite coming and giving you a product, then you should use this.
Product.
But I think when you go to them as an equal or even as someone who is going to learn from them, they have a lot of wonderful stories, a lot of things to say, and I think that discussion really helps them to also think about what they are using and why they are using it.
Using it,
So
absolutely.
a lot of our work revolves not around forcing people or pressuring people to switch to another product, but rather to just get them to understand what they are currently using and why they're currently using it.
Using it,
Um,
yeah.
and
And
then it's their choice.
their choice. And so you give them a range of products, or just the menstrual cup. That's
No, we talk
the
about menstrual cups, cloth pads, biodegradable pads, there's period panties. We also talk about making your own cloth pads. So a bunch
fantastic.
of
Yeah.
different things we talk about, and again, we kind of gauge like what the audience is like, and then
Like, yeah.
what they're showing interest in, and then we talk
Mm.
more about that if need be.
Yeah, and the hygiene aspect of it as well.
Yes,
So you kind
definitely,
of
definitely. Yeah.
fantastic, fabulous. And how in how many cities have you taken the project Amara to?
So mostly we've been working in Pune and the districts around Pune. We've done a bit of work in Delhi and Sonipat as well because that's where I'm based right now. And then one of
Currently?
our
Yeah.
members is based in Canada. So
Okay.
she was taking sessions in Canada. But right now we've also started growing the network. So we have a network of youth who are working on these.
Oh,
And in the
fantastic.
pandemic, we've been taking online sessions. So
Oh,
online sessions have been coming from across India.
brilliant,
You can have
brilliant.
one webinar with people all over India if it's like a company which is based across India. So that way I think we've hit quite a big group during the
Fantastic.
pandemic.
Great work. Great work. You and your friends. I mean, absolutely fabulous work. This is one taboo which nobody wants to talk
Yeah,
about. And to
definitely.
actually take it and discuss about this from a hygiene perspective as well as environment perspective, I think it's a fantastic
Right.
initiative.
And I would just
So
add one thing sorry, just
yeah,
to add one
go
thing
ahead.
here. I think the other thing with this whole topic is that sustainable menstrual products are promoted, but they're promoted to a very small section of society
Section,
because
yeah.
sustainability is seen as privileged, you know.
Privileged,
So if you look
absolutely.
at the pandemic right now, there's so many relief kits which are being given, but they all contain sanitary napkins, which makes no sense because those sanitary napkins will be one-time use and then they'll be disposed on the side of the highway and
Absolutely.
or the women just or they'll wear them for so long, you know, so that is not at all healthy. So even in the pandemic we are still actually handing out cloth pads to a lot of the busties and the various labor camps and things like that, and we're
But with
trying
the
to
explanation.
yeah, of course. So you go
Yeah.
and I think it takes about 10 minutes, you know, you just have to give 10 minutes of your time. You can wear a mask and you're all protected and you stand at a distance and you can talk
And you
about it.
explain to them. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Anjali. And I think that's a fantastic insight into how sustainability has to be explained, and it should not be looked upon as as an urban initiative. I mean, it has
Right.
to go down to, and in fact, I think people from from in rural areas and from slightly people with uh, from lower economic backgrounds, because thrift is something that they're born to.
Right.
So issues like excesses and wastage is something I think they would really connect well with. It will resonate well with them. So let's talk about the Yugma network, something that
Yes.
really got me excited. And I also want everybody who's listening in, I want them to work with you on this project and really support you. So let's talk about the Yugma network and the initiative that you have taken for the EIA draft policy 2020.
Sure. So before I even talk about the Yutma network, I think would you like me to give a quick explanation of what the EIA is and the EIA
Absolutely, you should.
2020?
Yes, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So the EIA is the Environment Impact Assessment. It's backed by the Environment Protection Act, and basically it's used by to basically assess if a development project and an industry how it would affect the environment and people in the area that it is being established in.
Yes,
And
yes.
on paper, at least, it's the way that people can voice their opinions, their concerns, and get the details about that project. Whether or not that always happens is very questionable, but on paper, that is its function. The EIA 2020 is very problematic because it reduces public consultation very largely amongst a lot of industries. It reduces the time that is available for public to give their concerns.
Concerns,
And
yeah.
it also has some clauses like it still continues the post facto grant,
Post
which is
facto,
basically
yeah.
Yeah, where
Most alarming.
an
Yeah.
industry can start work like land clearing, land leveling before even getting an environmental clearance. So the Vizag gas leak was a very big example of this. Their environmental clearance had actually expired.
Yes.
And they can start working without the environmental clearance and then pay off that fine later and get it. So this post facto clause is still in the EIA. The number of like time for reports has been reduced. So like regular environmental checks have been reduced a lot. Um, there's a lot of problematic clauses like this. How they've classified industries is also very basic. You know, they've classified it on size and capacity. That if it's a particular size and capacity, it will be called a certain category industry. And the biggest issue is that the industries classified under one category called the B2 category have no public consultation at all, and they are some of the most harmful industries. So it's very question. We really need to question that.
Question
And
that. Yeah. Yeah.
right. So I think the Yugma network really started from this. I'm the environment minister at Ashoka University, actually.
Yeah.
So I look over the environment and sustainability at Ashoka. So
Yeah.
we started this off as a simple solidarity statement that we had sent out to our own student body saying that we stand against the EIA 2020.
Okay.
And someone replied to me saying, "Have you reached out to other unions about this? Like you should ask them to send solidarity statements or something."
Statements.
And
Fantastic.
that got me thinking about it. So I started looking for a database or something that I could go off of and realized that there was actually no database of student unions and environmental clubs around India at a college level. So I just want to check, can you hear me properly? I think my
Yeah.
video is
Yeah. We
lagging
can.
a little bit.
No. No. We can. I can hear
You
you
can hear
very
me.
clearly. Yeah.
So I started looking for that, and that really got me connected to a very wonderful group of people from across India. So a few wonderful people from Azim Premji who are equally as responsible for the Yugma network as I am, and
Fantastic.
some Ashokans as well from my own batch, some of my friends. So we all started working together, trying to find exactly where, or where we can get these different unions in from, where are their contacts, and think slowly we built that. So we sent one email to the MOEFCC, which is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, with the list, so the signatures of more than 50 unions, student unions from across India. So we managed to put this together in, I think, 4 days or something.
Wow. Yes.
And so that was, we also got them to spam the MOEFCC with that same email with all the, signatures and everything. So that went across, but obviously we didn't hear back from them. So after that, we drafted a letter to the PMO,
Yes.
and we wrote another letter to the PMO with again the support of all of these unions and more. Actually, I think we had reached nearly 70 unions by the time we were writing to the PMO.
Yeah. And
So we
that
wrote
is
to
in terms of student numbers is how many? In terms of.
student numbers. Okay, that is actually a little hard to gauge, I would say, because you have unions like ISA or AISF, which
Uh,
cover more than 10,000, 20,000 students across India
Fantastic.
because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
they're present in many places.
Places.
I
Yeah.
would say because the short amount of time we weren't able to reach to the students themselves right then, which
Fantastic.
is why
Yeah.
we've created the Yugma network now. But
Yeah.
initially we were reaching out just to the heads of the student unions to give this letter some backing.
Yeah.
We emailed the PMO, and after that we got covered in quite a few different press releases. So I think it became a big issue that students are standing against
Standing up
the
against it.
EIA.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I still don't think it reached where the ears of the people it should have reached.
Okay.
So the time did get extended. So initially the
Yes.
deadline for public consultation was 30th June. Now
30th
it's
June. Yeah.
30th June. Now it's 11th
Mm.
August. So we have more than a month. So the Yugma network started a week ago, and we are working. It's basically a network or a platform where all different student unions from across India can come together and work on different policies, different research again relating to the EIA, because a lot of them are working in silo. But I think bringing it together will really make a big impact,
Together.
especially law colleges
Impact.
and things like that. So that is what the Yugma platform is. We're hoping that I think next week we're planning on starting some webinars with the students in these unions itself so that we can get to the students and
Students and get more and more
right,
people to participate in the, yeah,
right,
campaign.
right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
get the heads of these unions to also send the message out to everyone in their union. So that it's not just restricted to the heads of the unions, it's going to everyone.
Everybody, and everybody is aware of the issue. I have Venki Mutaya, a friend and a partner at RES, saying in addition to industry things, like hydroelectric projects, highways, railway lines also fall
Right.
under this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So highways, like
um,
expansion of highways, dams,
expansions.
renewable
Yeah,
energy, a lot of these
absolutely.
things fall under it.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I think would probably ring the death knell for a lot of environmentalists working on
Right.
various things.
Even I think the most concerning one is all strategic projects deemed by the central government,
Central
which
government,
means
yeah.
that anything that is considered strategic or regarding national defense
Developmental,
is
yes,
just
yeah,
automatically put out of public consultation.
yes. Yeah, it's crazy and really scary, really. Yeah,
It
and
is,
great.
it is.
And so you are on a platform, and we will also be sharing it on our social media and things. What would you like
Wonderful.
all of us to do? What you? I mean, I know I'm helping. You know, we are our press manager is helping you with the Hindi publications. I hope there is more I can
Yes,
do.
thank
I've
you so
also
much.
signed the minute Shobha sent it to me. I signed the thing. So, would you like to share the coordinates so that people listening in can go and sign and create numbers and
Right,
of dissent, numbers of dissent? Yeah,
right. So I would say do go to my bio, my Instagram bio. There's a form there, and you can fill that. But
mm,
apart from that, I think so. If you go online and search for emails, there are many spam emails. But I think more important than spam emails at this point is to raise awareness because the EIA deadline this time did not get extended because of public dissent, but rather because of law. So I think what you can really do is, for example, this video. There are many other videos online. I've been sharing them regularly on my page as well. You can go and pick up some good videos, posters from my page, from other pages as well. I will maybe send out a poster with some of the best like pages that you can follow and things like that.
fantastic.
Do
Yeah,
go look at them. You can, there's a lot of regional material which we are coming up with as well right now. So share all of these things, talk about it with as many people as possible. This is a movement that we can't let die down just because we have a month right now. I think this month should be
absolutely.
used to promote it and get
Every
more awareness.
minute, absolutely, every minute
Right,
should be used to. Yeah.
right.
So for for those of you who are listening in, Anjali underscore Dalmia is her Instagram handle. On Facebook, she pretty much is as Anjali Dalmia only, and I saw a lot of content there. Do please go and share share all the posts that she's done, especially on this issue, on the EIA issue. Thank you so much, Anjali. Is there anything else you would like to tell young people listening? There are a lot of young people listening in, including Ahilya, who was there. There were a couple
Yes,
of children
I
who
saw
said
that.
they belong to. Yeah, so there's fabulous work. There is also I told you about Venki Sejal from UK says great work with Amara. We had who else? Yeah, so there is Anaga, of course, who's saying that she goes to Waldorf schools. So,
Yes,
there are a lot of
right.
people who've joined in. So if you, would you like to share something?
Yeah, I
Tell,
can say one thing to all the young people on this call is that these kind of policies are only going to impact us the most. And it's very scary to
absolutely,
think about because we are going to be living in a world that gets impacted by these development projects right now. So while they might, I don't say that we don't need development projects. We do because we are in an economic slump right now and we need to revive our economy. But I think the important thing to remember is that can we do it in a way which is sustainable in the long term? Can we move to local consumption and production instead? Because damming every river and cutting down every forest for mines is not, it's not going to leave us any natural resources when we grow older. So
absolutely.
I think if you're a young person listening to this, you're never too young to talk about it and to talk. I think the argument that because you're young, you don't know enough, that is completely not true. Just do your research. There are so many links out there, and I will keep posting them on my page as well, on Yugma Network as well. You should go and check us out there as well. Uh, Read about it, learn about it, watch some videos, and then talk about it. Don't be scared because you think you're young. You're never too young to talk about this.
Absolutely. And you need a message for the older people also.
Right. I think older people, that is, I think if you're an older person, I think you really should think about um, what your lifestyle currently is. Firstly, what
Absolutely.
are the different values you are giving to your children? What kind of things do you talk about? I think you should definitely, more than just EIA, please go and read up about what climate change is, what all of these development projects are doing to the world, and how they're think about the fact of what kind of a world do you want your kid to live in,
To live in,
and think
absolutely. Yeah.
about how this will impact us in the future, and how you can change your actions to make your own children more aware of it. Maybe you should sit with them and talk to them about these issues. You should encourage them to think about these. So I think if you are an older person, you should definitely do that.
Thank you. I'm one of them, and I shall definitely follow everything you say. Thank you so much, Anjali. What a
Thank
delight
you for
it was
having me.
talking to you. It was absolutely wonderful. And like I said, anything you want me to help you with, just reach out. Happy to make those mailers. Happy to call up friends, ask them all to sign up and support you in this endeavor. Anything you do in future,
Thank you
absolutely
so much.
fabulous. I mean, it was really a pleasure, and I hope young people listening in, if you know young people, young children, youth, anybody working towards mitigating climate change, working in the environment, working for wildlife, conserving habitats, protecting communities, trying to protect intangible heritage, anything, I'd like to talk to you because I believe you're the future and you would lead us to it. Thank you so much.
And
Thank you,
definitely
Anjali.
do contact me as well, so we can collaborate. I think it's more important for all of us to stand together right now and work on it together.
Absolutely. And there is Anjali underscore Dalmia at in Instagram, and Anjali Dalmia on Facebook. Please get in touch with her and just let's make this happen. That EIA draft policy has to go,
Yes,
and we have to have a
definitely.
much more stringent policy in place.
Yes,
Thank you,
definitely.
Anjali.